Our next speaker is Stephen Knight. Stephen comes from a secular atheist perspective, podcaster, blogger, and reporter for The Godless Spellchecker.
Thanks, John. I'm very pleased to be here to be talking about the line between religious freedoms and discrimination, especially in the light of some really high-profile events. And I'm always surprised at the problems religions will throw up for us in the 21st century. I mean, if it's not cartoons, it's cakes now. So there's never a dull moment. However, I do want to start by pointing out a bigger issue which I think underpins a lot of this conversation about religious rights, and that's religious privilege. No doubt many of you may have heard the expression that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And I think that explains a lot of what's going on in this conversation. The godly, basically, they've had it too good for too long. Just to speak of England, where we are for a moment, England's a culturally Christian country. Our previous and current prime ministers have paid lip service to the idea we're a Christian nation. We have 26 unelected bishops in the House of Lords. Around a third of publicly funded schools in England and Wales have a religious nature. So this allows public funds to be used to push dogma on young and malleable minds. Every school, even non-faith schools in fact, must have collective worship, and that must be of a Christian character also. Schools can discriminate in their admissions policy based on religious grounds and in their employment policy as well. Even animals aren't exempt from the demands of religious primates, with stunned slaughter and therefore animal welfare being sacrificed in God's particular, meat-based preferences. So that's already government, children, employment and animals, and until very recently, gays, atheists, women and the occasional witch. So I don't have enough time to list all the ways in which religion enjoys special treatment in society and government, and the ways in which it's allowed to discriminate and what it gets away with. I mean, I've not even got round to the topic of infant circumcision, so I mean, good luck explaining that one to the aliens. The issue here is an obvious one to me. It's Iron Age beliefs are coming into collision with progressive modern values. And these antiquated beliefs are essentially the slowest kid in the classroom. They're holding back the rest of us, and that includes liberal and progressive believers too, and Islamic reformers. And wider society recognises religion's lack of relevance to our day-to-day lives, and we just simply don't want it there. Christianity specifically is losing its relevance in Britain, like all bad ideas should. The values of modern society have simply just surpassed those of Scripture. This is reflected in downward trends in religiosity in general, in numerous polls, or the decrease in actual church attendance. Votes in favour of gay marriage and votes in favour of the right to abortion also highlight this shift in attitudes. So with this being the backdrop of this conversation, when religious tend to moan about their rights being curtailed, they're often simply unhappy at having their ideas treated the same as everyone else's. So we're asked today, where do we draw the line? And the line's already been firmly placed in favour of the godly as far as I'm concerned. But I fully concede it's a tricky territory. And as a result of that, my fellow secularist and my fellow anti-theist may overstep the mark on occasion in their sort of passionate opposition to all things God in the workplace and in society in general. So when we talk about a Christian-run establishment refusing to bake a gay cake, we're not talking about rights per se. We're sort of talking about whether we think the state should be able to compel individuals and businesses to promote certain ideas that go against their conscience and core belief. And that's where it does get tricky. Do I think it's right that a Christian baker would refuse to make a gay cake adorned with a pro-gay marriage? No, I don't think that's right. But do I think the baker should be compelled by law to make the cake? And no, I don't think that's right either. So, to be clear, gay rights are a human right, as far as I'm concerned. However, I don't think having custom cakes a prerequisite for being a homosexual. And gay people have the right to take their money elsewhere, and I think that they should. So this isn't a perfect solution or outcome, I concede, but I don't think life owes us perfect solutions to complicated and messy problems. But we do our best, and we mustn't lose sight of the bigger picture, which I think is individual freedom. Now, if an establishment refuses service to someone solely because they're gay, black, trans, etc., now that's against various discrimination laws, and that the law should act. But once you compel businesses to promote certain ideas, you create a very unfortunate precedent. I mean, I doubt anyone in here would be comfortable with compelling, say, a black tattoo artist to ink a white supremacist with, various white supremacist symbols and logos, or, compelling a Muslim-run printing shop to reel off 400 Mohammed cartoons. I mean, as funny as that'd be. So I submit that the problem that would arise from state intervention in these problems would be far more egregious than the inconvenience and hurt feelings of just having to take your business elsewhere. Businesses should be able to decide exactly what they produce, but not whom exactly they produce them for. And that line might be difficult, line might be difficult to see. And in other ways that prevent you from seeing clearly, that brings me to the burqa. Boris Johnson fell afoul of hysterical liberals recently in his comments on the burqa or niqab. Not many people seem to have noticed that Boris Johnson was actually objecting to the potential Danish ban on the garment. Instead, everyone seemed to hone in on this mocking language about letterboxes and bank robbers, I think was another one. And to me, there's no contradiction here in his comments. I think we can respect the right of women to choose what they want to wear, whilst acknowledging that specific garment is a symbol of misogynistic Islamic patriarchy. And as liberals, I think we have a duty to speak up about this kind of thing. I mean, when my fellow liberals condemn criticism of the burqa and the niqab, but under the guise of protecting Muslims, they don't seem to spare a thought for all the female Muslim dissidents in Saudi Arabia and Iran throwing down their veils in defiance and finding themselves locked up, or worse, for their efforts. I don't think they, along with those living a life of misery in this very country, would thank us for biting our tongue, so I'd encourage you not to. And I'd also push back against anyone who misuses the label of bigotry to weaponise shame. So, in conclusion, we must acknowledge the right of refusal due to religious beliefs in some instances, even when we do not agree in principle with those beliefs. The right to wear burqas and look like letterboxes should be protected, but we should be able to speak out in opposition to it. Businesses and individuals should be able to flaunt their ignorance and outmoded views. This makes it easy for us to know where they are, so we can choose to take our custom elsewhere, because that's what individual freedom is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stephen. Our next